Okay, so this is tutorial 3 for today, and we're looking at comparative anatomy, the study of similarities and differences in the structure of living organisms. More similarities in structure implies that they have separated from a common ancestor more recently. So remember this, divergent evolution. Homologous structures are evidence of divergent evolution. So we looked at divergent evolution in the last class. Now we're going to associate with the term homologous structures. This is comparative anatomy is evidence for evolution. So similarities in structure suggest a descent from a common ancestor. Difference in structure represent modifications, indicate how organisms have evolved to become different. Homologous structures, organisms that have the same basic plan to their structure but show modifications, descent with modification. This is descent with modification. Evidence of divergent evolution. They all come from a mammal, common ancestor. But look at them. Look at the radius. They all have a radius, but all of a sudden this radius becomes very, very short in a whale. Very, very long and fine in a bat because of different selection pressures. Swimming, grasping, running, jumping, and flying. Okay, those are homologous structures. Analogous is evidence of convergent evolution. Remember convergent? Different parent species, but similar. We have example of the butterfly and batwing mammal, insect. And we could put a bird here as well. So similar function, but different origin is analogous. Have evolved independently, but have similar structures due to similar selection pressures. Okay. So go through this. And one way of doing this is highlighting, let's find the radius. We'll do that yellow and we'll go, okay, there's my radius right there. And then we're going to find the radius here. I think it's right here. The radius is here. Radius is here. Radius is here. And the radius is here. Now we've got that one done. Now find the humerus. Do it a different color. Okay. And then have a think a bit about these questions right here. Okay. So we want to just go through some of these. What are they used for, and how are they similar, and how are they different? Okay, vestigial, evolution remnants of features, body parts that served important functions in the organism's ancestors but no longer serve a useful function. This provides evidence of a common ancestry. Okay, so tailbone, we don't use that anymore. Okay, there's a membrane here, a nictitating membrane. Ability to wiggle ears. The appendix, these are all vestigial, indicate that one time this body part served a function, but because it doesn't provide a disadvantage to us, we still retain it. Well, here's some interesting ones in the animal kingdom. Did you know that whales have hips? Yep. Do they use them? No. Snakes have these reduced hind legs and a pelvic girdle within. Okay, that indicates that one time this was a reptile that was a tetrapod. It had 4 limbs. Now it's no longer useful. Now, why would that be? Because by having limbs, it wouldn't be able to get into small areas as easily. So it was able to exploit a new niche by being limbless. It provided an advantage. By not having a pelvic girdle, it provided a new niche for this mammal to swim in oceans. It was able to exploit a new niche. And what was the original source of that variation? Different mutations, right? Okay, comparative embryology. Comparison of different stages of different organisms. Similarities can be used to infer relationships between organisms. Assumption related species show similarities in their embryonic development. So that's the assumption here. The development of fish, reptile, and bird to humans at 6 weeks showing pharyngeal gill slits right here. These are pharyngeal gill slits. There's the human. And it's also going to show a tail. Okay, well, we're going to use that in a second here. Take a look at these, A, B, C, D, E, F. Go to your workbook and take a look. Which one do you think is a human? How about the chicken, the tortoise, the fish? Now, these are older. Is it more easy to find those? Go ahead, try and do those. So this is slightly later development. What's happened to the pharyngeal gill slits? They're starting to become reduced in this animal, for example. Whereas this one, pharyngeal gill slits became external. Okay, retain them. This one, the pharyngeal gill slits actually formed real gills. They retain them. And now, okay, well, this is becoming a little easier. Look again at the embryos and there's describe the patterns you see. Does this suggest an evolutionary relationship? Okay, so there we go. These are the answers. Okay, so here's the answers for this section right here. And we've gone through a couple of answers here. All animals share the same development genes, so they use the same genes during different stages of development, suggesting a common ancestor. Differences indicate descent with modification. Presence of gill slits and tails indicates that all life evolved from aquatic environments. Okay, so you can go back to this in your worksheet and fill those out. Biogeography, study of geographical distribution of organisms both living and extinct, movement of continents caused by continental drift, used to predict where fossils of different organisms might be found. Geographic isolation, the criterion for new species rise, so it follows that new species should resemble species which they shared a habitat with. Younger species got restricted to certain continents like marsupials in Australia. Older ones are more widespread, like reptiles. Some evolved after the continent broke up, marsupials in Australia. Some species are able to travel long distances like birds. This concept of biogeography supports the concept of adaptive radiation, the migration of organisms into new environments. Okay, so there's some theory about biogeography. Let's take a look at this. Look at this diagram right here. This is a very famous, important diagram. Which species is the oldest? Is it Cygnognathus? Is it Mesosaurus? Is it Lystrosaurus? Or is it Glossopteris? Well, here is Pangea, okay, Gondwana, sorry, Gondwana, the southern continent. And you can watch this video on continental drift. Pangea, there we are. There's Gondwana. Well, prior to it breaking apart, you notice that Glossopteris was on all the different continents, okay? Whereas Lystrosaurus was on Antarctica, India, and Africa. So we'd say that this would be the oldest species. It was on all the continents, whereas the Mesosaurus shared it just with these two regions right here. Now, distribution of flightless birds, is this biogeography or a convergent evolution? If we take a look at Gondwana land again, right here, we can see all these flightless birds, ostriches, rheas, emus, kiwis, cassowaries, okay, in Australia, okay. And a lot of people say that this is actually a distribution suggests that they originate from a common ancestor on Gondwana and the different populations evolved on the southern continents. That's actually incorrect. And watch this little video on it. It actually says that it's a case of convergent evolution. Okay, uh, some of them just didn't need wings, and they had similar selection pressures. And those birds that didn't need wings actually were flightless. And you get them in different southern continents. So this is not a case of biogeography where they share a common ancestor before the continents broke up. Okay, fossil evidence. I'll do this on the next lesson.